I'm Scott Johnson. I'm the regional sales manager for TECO Raptor Piranha here in Dayton, Ohio. About a year and a half ago, we'd entered into an agreement with a company out of Switzerland called Piranha. Piranha is a manufacturer of our self-centering zero-point vices. In the process of making their zero-point vices, they decided that their coolant line, which they were using the little plastic blue and gold coolant line, they were running their facility lights out. Well, they were coming back in the morning, and here they would find that the coolant line had either snapped, it had cracked, it had blown, it was flipping around, so the coolant was never really even going into their parts. So he decided that he could make a better mousetrap. So hence, he's come out with the Piranha coolant line. And our coolant line is anodized aluminum, and there are 3 different sizes. We've got the 1/8" system, a 1/2" system, and then a 1/4" system, depending on what your application is. So we have virtually three different sizes of coolant line, which takes the place of any coolant line you have out there. We have the same adapters that you can use that can adapt. You can take the lock line off, put ours on. You can use special adapters to get it to fit virtually whatever machine that you have. They're designed to go on either mills like I have behind me, or in a minute you'll see lathes that we have it on, and also for grinding applications. This is the new catalog that just came out, and it's got quite a few items on it that basically it's a erector set. We have starter kits, and then you can get the stuff individually if you want also. And when I say it's an erector set, all the pieces basically come apart, and they come in different lengths. We have different nozzles as well, depending on, again, what your application is. They also have a seal at the end, and that seal is a patented Piranha seal. And what it does, though, it doesn't have anything to do with keeping the coolant inside the line itself. It has to do with locking down the joints of the coolant line. So if you tighten it up, you can get it as tight or as loose as you need it. You can get it super tight so that it holds straight, or you can actually loosen it up a little bit so that you can actually move it into the position to where you need it to go. We also have angles, we've got Ys, we've got ball valves, a variety of components that you can use to build up for your coolant application. And as I was telling you with the competitive part, the problem with this is about 100 psi. This you can get 1100 psi out of. And to give you a quick demonstration of what that looks like, I've got our machine back here behind us. And I'm going to take the camera off here for a minute. And as you can see, we've got our lock line on one side, and then we've got the Piranha coolant on the other side, and you can see the steady stream that you're getting right at. And I don't have it at the cutting tool, I just moved it so you can see the 2 streams. But if you've got them both aimed at the cutting tool, just like that, you're getting more coolant and higher pressure right at the cut zone. And that's a big advantage to any kind of coolant, is getting the coolant where it needs to be for a variety of reasons. Number one, you want your part being flushed from the chips that are being made, but you also want the cutting tool itself to be remain at a lower temperature, because heat is probably the worst thing that can happen when you're machining to the part, to the cutting tool. All kinds of issues can happen. So you can see with the plastic line, if it's going to be flying around during your machining, you're going to have just probably a bad part at the end of the day, and also a damaged cutting tool. So that's one of the biggest advantages we have using the anodized aluminum versus the plastic. And I did mention to you that we have the starter kits. We do have a starter kit that comes into a box, and it has a variety of little items in it. And this is really nice for a guy that may not know exactly what he's going to need. He can buy just the starter kit, use some of the items out of it, and build up his coolant line application as needed. To be honest with you, the majority of the sales that we have is really on a case-by-case and a machine-by-machine basis. where an individual goes in, you show them the kit, but then you're going to have to get some demo parts in and actually build up the machine with the items that he's going to need, with the links that he's going to need, and with the nozzles that he's going to need to actually get him into getting the entire machine outfitted the way it should be. And I was telling you about the different nozzles that we have. Most of you have got your garden hose out home, and you've got the spray nozzle at the end. And if you don't have a spray nozzle and you turn your water as full bore, you're going to get the water just sort of, as you can see on here, it just kind of falls out of the hose. But we have different nozzles that go on the end. You notice that's a round hole nozzle. We also have different size holes, but then we also have what we call the multi-port nozzle. We recommend using the multi-port, and that's what I have in here. The multi-port's got 7 1.5 millimeter holes at the end. You're gonna get, you got the same flow going through your line as you would with the round hole or like with your garden hose. It's the same flow. The flow hasn't changed. But when you've reduced that flow down to these 7 little multi-ports, the pressure that comes out of here is more direct, and it's a lot higher than what you would get out of just a round nozzle. So you're going to get a lot more and a lot higher pressure right through the cut zone where you need it. And so that's why we recommend using the multi-port to start with. As you go along, the multi-port, depending on the application and also depending on the machine filtration system, because as you can tell with a multi-port, if a machine doesn't have very good filtration on their coolant, you're liable to get the multi-port clogged, and you'll have to go back to the round piece. So that is a key question to ask or to investigate. You're going to know real quick, once they get the multi-port installed, you'll know real quick whether they've got good filtration or not. So with the variety of nozzles, it just makes it a really nice feature for us to go in and be able to solve a problem that a lot of the people in the shop may not even know that they have. In fact, when you use something like this, they're using the lock line, it's actually it's putting coolant on where it needs to go, but until you've actually put ours on, they didn't realize what they were missing out on and how much better their parts can come out if they're using the right coolant line. And I did mention lock line. We also have another competitor out there that does stainless steel, and they're called Hurt. Now the issue with stainless steel is they don't have the locking mechanism that we have. So the issues that we found in the field, after a while, theirs start to back off and the parts fall off. So what the customers that we run into, what they've had to do, they've had to weld their joints together to keep their lines straight. You don't have to do that with ours. The other issue you have with the stainless steel is a lot heavier than this. So if you're going to have a long run, you're going to have a hard time keeping that stainless steel system pointing out where it needs to go. And of course, we showed you our vertical machine here. They're also good on lathes and actually grinders. I don't have a grinder to show you, but if you're using a grinding application, we've got the larger, flatter head, multi-port nozzles that can be put right underneath the grinding wheel. And because of the pressure that comes out of these nozzles, this doesn't have to be right against the grinding wheel like you'll see in the shop. You can move it out a little bit farther, so it helps get rid of the grit better, and also won't clog as easy as if it's right underneath the grinding wheel. Any questions so far? I'm going to turn us around a little bit. I'm going to show you our next machine here. And this is our lathe application. And as you can see on most lathe, or not most, every lathe's got a turret. And these turrets have different stations. Each station, this one right here is like a 12 station turret, and each station has a different tool on it. You can have an end mill on it, you can have a center drill, you can have a forming tool, you can have a threading mill on it. And each one of these turrets have their own individual coolant lines. And their coolant lines, though, when you buy one out of the shop, we call these brass balls, we call them lathe balls. And then they also use the copper tubing as opposed to an actual line. And now these lathe balls, let me get my camera back on here. Now the lathe balls themselves come in different diameters. This one happens to be a 15 millimeter lathe ball. And what you do is you basically undo the set screw here, put your lathe ball in, put your set screw or tighten it back up, and it holds it in place. Now these lathe balls basically are hollow, and they have just a wide opening, and again, the coolant just kind of flops out onto the area where it needs to be. And our solution to that is we have our own style lathe ball. We also have the 15 millimeter. This happens to be a multi-port lathe ball. And the other thing you'll notice with the lathe balls too, as you crimp on this brass, it will pinch it. And you can deform the brass balls so you're not going to get all the flow that you want. We've eliminated that too because we have a ring that actually goes over top of the lathe ball. So when it gets crimped into the turret, it's actually crimping on this ring and holding it in place. So you're going to save wear and tear on the actual ball. Now that one had a multi-port on it. It's also, you'll notice it was, you'll notice this was short. We have the same thing in a longer nozzle. And then we also have the same thing in a straight nozzle. Now, I told you these are 15 millimeter balls. We also have a 10, 12, 14 millimeter as well. Those are the most popular that we see out in the field. And actually right now we're going to be working on an actual lathe kit, like a turret kit, depending on what machine you have and how many stations that you have. To tool up a turret, it runs anywhere between $80 to $120, $150 per tool. So you can go anywhere from a $300 to a $1,200 install, depending on how many tools that they have on their turret. But I'm going to give you a real quick demonstration here of what it's going to look like when you turn it on. I'll have Nick help me here. Go ahead and turn it on, Nick. So you can see the tooling, the lathe ball on top, how it sort of looks like it has zero pressure. We just put our coolant ball, or our lathe ball in the bottom, and you can see just the difference. And this is going to make a huge difference in your customer's part, and also the elimination of the chips around the part. So the tool's going to make much better cuts, as you can see. Now I showed you the brass. I showed you the brass or the copper tubing. We also have a solution for that as well. Again, we have what we this is not the right one. Here we go. We've got this fitting here. This also it comes into the 10, 12, 14, 15 millimeter ball, and this will go into the same spot as the lathe ball I just showed you, or where that copper tubing was. And it looks like this once you build it up. So now I can move it around, I can put whatever nozzle I want on it, and it takes the place of that copper tubing. And the problem with the copper tubing, and everybody that's on a lathe that has copper tubing is going to tell you the same thing. They hate bending copper, because you take your copper tube and you have to bend it to get it to where you need it to go. And so as soon as you bend copper, you've already put a crease in it, so you've already reduced your flow. And then by the time you've done it 2 or 3 different times, it breaks. So they got to do it again. And I don't know how many times we've had people say, I'm not in the business of bending copper. Well, this eliminates that altogether. And also, as you're moving your hands inside and out, a lot of times with the copper tubing, you're going to knock it and move it. With here, you can keep it and get it out of the way. And you saw with the pressure, you can move it a little farther away from your cutting tool. So do we have any questions so far? Well, that pretty much concludes what I've got here for you for the Piranha coolant line. Again, the best way to get it out there and have your customers test it. Let us know what you're putting it on. We got a 30-day trial on the coolant line. Get with your local representative. Give us a call. Give us a picture of what you're looking at, and then we can actually size it up for you. Let you know what items we need. We get it out to you. But the real key is once you put it on the machine like this, We rarely do we ever lose a sale once they've seen what it's like. So, but it is very important they have to test it. It's not something they're going to buy looking at a catalog or just buying a demo kit and trying it. You actually have to hold their hand a little bit to get them to change it out. So I want to thank everybody.